Chapter 156, Willing to Accept Him. Huo Liancheng looked at the dark screen of his phone. The corner of his mouth slowly curled up. She did not object when he called her wife. Did it mean that she was gradually accepting him? As long as he could get her heart, he was willing to wait. He had waited for 6 years. He did not care about this moment. However, this girl seemed smart, so why was she so slow in terms of feelings? Did she not see through his feelings for her, or did she not take back her heart from Shu Haiyang until now? Huo Liancheng frowned. He suddenly did not want to think deeper. That night, Jian Yun was lying on the bed alone, but she did not fall asleep for a long time because she was worried about her mother's surgery tomorrow. There was still a trace of worry that could not be told to outsiders. She also noticed that her attitude towards Huo Liancheng had changed. When he touched her, she did not feel as conflicted as before. However, she clearly did not like him. Whenever she thought of the dispute between them and the words he scolded and humiliated her, she felt as if there was a thorn in her heart. This was not because she held a grudge, it was because no one had wronged her like that since she was young. No one had wronged her like that. She had cursed her in that tone, and her pride had prevented her from accepting a man who looked down on her from the bottom of his heart. He looked down on her, but he approached her. So contradictory, how could she open her heart to him? But now, she had no choice but to rely on him. She did not dare to disobey him and offend him like she did in the past, because only he could help her now. It really was contradictory. This kind of relationship made Jian Yun feel ashamed. In the end, she was still too useless. If she did not relax 3 years ago and continue to work hard to earn money, then she would bring her mother to her side. Then wouldn't what happened afterwards happen? Forget it. I don't want to think about it. There is no ifs in this world. If there were ifs, how could there be so many misunderstandings and regrets? Jian Yun did not know how she fell asleep later on. The nurse came in to make ward rounds in the middle of the night, and she woke up once. When she opened her eyes again, it was already 6 in the morning. The nurse had just finished checking the room and left. Jin Yun went to the washroom to wash up. When she came out, she found that there was another person in the ward. The familiar tall, he was standing with his back to her, at the window, looking out. Jin Yun could not hide the surprise on her face. She walked behind Huo Liancheng and could not help but ask, "Why did you come so early?" Huo Liancheng turned around. His handsome face was not tired. He did not smile at Jin Yun. "I miss you. I can't sleep." Jin Yun trembled when she heard that. She rolled her eyes at Huo Liancheng. "Have you had breakfast?" Jin Yun skipped the topic and did not take Huo Liancheng's words seriously. "Are you not touched at all?" Huo Liancheng was a little dissatisfied. "All right, I am very touched," Jian Yun said seriously. In fact, Jian Yun had long believed that Huo Liancheng would not have any real feelings for her. That was why she was not stupid enough to believe his words. She had warned herself that no matter how much he did and how good he was to her, she could not lose her heart. A girl who does not know how to be flirtatious. Huo Liancheng sighed helplessly. "It's only 6 o'clock now. It's too early for breakfast. Sit down for a while. I'll go boil some hot water." Jin Yun looked at the time on her phone and went into the small kitchen. She took out an electric kettle and prepared to boil water. Huo Liancheng did not follow her in because he was thinking. These days, he had been thinking about a problem. From the moment he met Jian Yun, which part had the problem and why she did not believe anything he said. When Jian Yun came out of the kitchen, she found another person in the ward. It was Ouyang Beicheng. He was still wearing the same clothes as yesterday. He stood beside the sofa with a dark face and was communicating with Huo Liancheng through his eyes. Sparks flew in the air, and cold air filled the air. Jian Yun could not help but have goosebumps all over her body. Jian Yun noticed that the atmosphere was not right and immediately wiped the oil off her feet. However, just as she turned around, she felt that she had left, just like that. What if the two of them fought? Moreover, this was her mother's smith. Today, her mother was going to have surgery, so she could not let anything happen to her. "Little uncle, why are you so early?" Jian Yun pretended nothing had happened and walked over. She pulled off Ouyang Beicheng's sleeve and asked him to sit down. "I'm used to getting up early." Ouyang Beicheng lowered his eyes and looked at Jian Yun. He seemed to want to say something, but in the end, he did not say anything. Huo Liancheng usually did not talk much. Jian Yun did not know what to say in the face of two men who were silent. She could only remain silent. Hence, other than the sounds made by the instruments, she could not hear any other sounds in the ward. The air seemed to have become stagnant. In the end, Jian Yun could not take it anymore. She suddenly stood up and walked out of the door. "I'm going to buy breakfast." But just as she walked to the door, Jian Yun turned around and ran back. She held Huo Liancheng's arm and dragged him away. "Little uncle, stay here with Mom. We'll be back in a while." She almost forgot. She left Huo Liancheng and Ouyang Beicheng together. She did not know what these two would do. After exiting the ward, Jian Yun let go of Huo Liancheng, but Huo Liancheng grabbed her hand. Jian Yun raised her head to look at him. He also lowered his head, but only said one word, "Let's go." After taking 2 steps, Jian Yun noticed that Huo Liancheng was not wearing a coat, so she quickly pulled him back. "It's cold outside in the morning. I'll bring you a coat." "No need." Huo Liancheng did not stop. His voice was always cold. Jian Yun felt a chill when she walked out of the building. She could not help but wrap her sweater around herself. But soon, she realized she was being held by Huo Liancheng. He held her in front of his chest. She could hear his strong heartbeat and the warmth of his body. Jian Yun did not refuse because she could not refuse. Huo Liancheng's arm was like an iron clamp that did not allow her to break free. However, she was cursing in her heart why Huo Liancheng could be so warm despite wearing so little. Across from the hospital was jiayan and soybean milk. It was not even 7 o'clock yet, and there were very few people in the hospital. Jian Yun and Huo Liancheng did not need to line up after they entered. Jian Yun ordered soybean milk, deep-fried dough sticks, and buns. She still remembered the morning they met. Huo Liancheng woke up drunk in her house and ate 2 big bowls of noodles in one go, so Jian Yun ordered noodles for Huo Liancheng to eat. The two of them found a seat and sat down. Jian Yun bit on the fried dough sticks and saw Huo Liancheng put down his chopsticks after eating 2 mouthfuls. She could not help but ask curiously, "What's wrong? Isn't it delicious?" Huo Liancheng frowned. "The taste is not right." Jian Yun did not understand what he meant. She thought he meant that the noodles had gone bad. So she picked up the chopsticks and took a bite. The soup was very strong, and the noodles were not a problem. The food was good. She looked up and was about to say that there was nothing wrong with it when Huo Liancheng pushed the tray away. "I'm not eating anymore. Go and buy noodles. Make it for me." Chapter 157. It's all messed up, all messed up. Ah? Jian Yun had just stuffed the fried dough sticks into her mouth when she heard this. She immediately became Sparta. The fried dough sticks fell onto the table. What did she mean by asking her to go back and cook noodles for him? Let's go. Huo Liancheng had already called the waiter to pack up the steamed buns, fried dough sticks, soybean milk that Jian Yun had not finished. He then led her away. Hey, hey, hey. After exiting the door, Jian Yun finally found her voice. She tugged at Huo Liancheng and said very speechlessly, "Are you asking for too much?" However, Jian Yun felt that there was something wrong with what she said. Her cooking was not bad, but it was not to the point where it was unforgettable. She said that he was asking for too much. Was she trying to raise herself? But she had also tasted the noodles just now, and felt that what she cooked was not more delicious than this. It was a mess. When Jian Yun faced Huo Liancheng, she could only obey him. Firstly, it was not enough to deal with him. Secondly, she was not as shameless as President Huo. Therefore, even though she had a big opinion, she was still dragged to the convenience store to buy noodles. When Jian Yun paid the bill, she saw that she had bought everything, so she took some vegetables and a box of shredded meat. Returning to the ward, Jian Yun saw Ouyang Beicheng sitting beside Ouyang Fei's bed. The nurse was also there. She walked over and greeted Ouyang Beicheng, then entered the kitchen. Huo Liancheng did not want to see Ouyang Beicheng, so he also followed in. Jian Yun skillfully boiled the noodles in the water, washed the vegetables and shredded meat, and then stir-fried the vegetables. A few minutes later, 2 large bowls of fragrant vegetable and shredded meat noodles were ready. She also fried 6 poached eggs. These 2 men were both big, so she specially added more. Huo Liancheng had been leaning against the door from the beginning until the end. Seeing Jian Yun busy and smelling the fragrance, his heart also warmed up. It was as if the scene from 6 years ago appeared in front of his eyes again. But when he saw Jian Yun divide the noodles into 2 bowls, it was obvious that she did not specialize in cooking noodles. He was immediately a little unhappy. Jian Yun turned her head and saw Huo Liancheng's face was a little smelly. She thought that she had cooked the noodles for too long and made him anxious. Hence, she hurriedly brought the bowl to the table, handed him the chopsticks, and then carried the other bowl out. When she came back, she noticed that the atmosphere in the "you don't want to eat?" Huo Liancheng narrowed his eyes and looked at Jian Yun. "Little uncle and I will eat together." Jian Yun answered casually and took another bowl and chopsticks. She turned around and prepared to leave. She said it very naturally because she had been used to eating together with Ouyang Beicheng since she was young. She also liked to snatch food from a bowl, so she did not feel anything wrong. However, before Jian Yun could walk to the door, she was pulled back by Huo Liancheng. "You are not allowed to go." Huo Liancheng's handsome face was gloomy, and his eyes were burning with anger. "Eat with me." Jian Yun turned back to look at him. She felt President Huo's words were full of jealousy, but she would not say it because she was asking for trouble. Although she could not accept being so close to him in her heart, Jian Yun thought about it again. Anyway, they did not share the utensils. Jian Yun did not have a big appetite and had breakfast earlier, so she only took a small bowl of noodles from Huo Liancheng's bowl. She did not eat much, but when she looked up, she found that Huo Liancheng had basically finished eating. She could not help but raise her eyebrows and felt her hair stand on end. After breakfast, it was almost 8 in the morning. The nurses in the ward went in and out. Jian Yun was also getting more and more nervous. Fortunately, Huo Liancheng and Ouyang Beicheng were here now. She was not as helpless as when she was facing everything alone. At least, she had confidence in her heart. Before Elson and Baize entered the operating theater, they also came to the ward. Jian Yun saw that Elson looked relaxed. He was still in the mood to joke with her. Although she really wanted to laugh, her facial muscles were about to spasm due to nervousness. She could not even twitch the corner of her mouth. At 8:15 in the morning, Wu Yangfei was pushed into the operating theater. Jian Yun's heart was also pulled up. Even though Bai Zhe had told her that they had performed several surgical plans with Elson to ensure Wu Yangfei's safety as much as possible, Jian Yun could not relax no matter what. Time passed minute by minute. Jian Yun sat outside the operating room and stared at the light that was on. She was so nervous that she did not even dare to blink her eyes. Huo Liancheng did not go to the company today. He had been sitting beside Jian Yun and accompanying her. She was so nervous that he asked her to grab her hands and let her dig her nails into his palm. She did not even frown. Wu Yanbeicheng leaned against the wall with his back and kept his head down. An hour passed, 2 hours. When it was almost 3 hours, the lights above the operating theater were finally turned off. However, Jian Yun was getting more and more nervous. She felt that she could barely breathe. She could only watch the door of the operating theater open, and a few doctors in blue scrubs walked out. She wanted to go and ask her mother about the situation, but her legs seemed to be nailed to the ground. She could not move no matter what. Jian Yun tried a few times but could not stand up. She was so anxious that she was about to cry. At this moment, Jian Yun felt that she was being held by a strong arm. Borrowing his strength, she finally stood up. He supported her and walked forward. Jian Yun desperately held onto his hand to prevent herself from falling. Wu Yanbeicheng was the first to walk forward. Elson saw Jian Yun and walked towards her. Jian Yun opened her mouth and wanted to speak, but she tried several times but could not make a sound. She was really too scared. She was afraid that she would hear bad news. These 2 days, she deliberately did not let herself think about it. She was worried that before her mother entered the operating theater, she would fall because of fear. Huo Liancheng gently stroked Jian Yun's stiff shoulder and comforted her in this way. Dr. Elson finally walked in front of Jian Yun. He pursed his lips and gave Jian Yun a big smile. He cupped his fists mischievously and said a sentence. He said, "It is fortunate that you did not fail. The operation was very successful." Jian Yun heard him and felt her nerves suddenly relax. She felt the air around her instantly rush towards her. The pain of being on the verge of suffocation suddenly disappeared and her lungs became clear. "Jian Yun, the operation was very successful. You can rest assured." Bai Zhe also walked over and comforted Jian Yun with a smile. "And there is also good news to tell you that your mother cannot stand up not because of the lumbar vertebrae problem, but because there is blood clot in the cranium that has suppressed the nerves. Today's surgery was also removed, so..." Before Bai Zhe could finish his words, Jian Yun was already very excited. Her mother could stand up. She was completely shocked by this sudden good news. Jian Yun suddenly felt her vision blur. "Thank you." Jian Yun could not help but cry. She laid on Huo Liancheng's chest and covered her face. She could not stop crying. She had moved into the ICU after her mother was seriously injured. Until now, she had never been able to relax. Previously, she had been running around for money, but after her mother passed out again, she felt that the sky was about to collapse. Fortunately, everything was about to get better. Her persistence for so many years had not been in vain. Chapter 158, Remember to take that measure. "All right now, you're so grown up, yet you still cry like a child. Shame on you." Wu Yanbeicheng also revealed a rare smile on his face. He used his finger to flick Jian Yun's head, reminding her that there were still a lot of people here. Jian Yun came back to her senses. Her face was red with embarrassment. She tried hard not to cry, but she was still sobbing. She raised her head to look at Huo Liancheng. Her eyes were hazy, but she was embarrassed to say, "I'm sorry. I dirtied your clothes again." Huo Liancheng looked at Jian Yun's bright eyes that had been washed with tears. The thin corner of his lips lifted slightly, and his eyes revealed a gentle expression. "It's okay," he said. "As long as you are willing, this place will be open to you at any time." Huo Liancheng's voice was very soft. He spoke into Jian Yun's ear again, so no one else heard it. Everyone only saw Jian Yun's face turn a little redder. It was like the pigeon blood gem, or like the red apple hanging on the branches behind the autumn frost. Her face was so beautiful that it was tempting. For a moment, Jian Yun felt that Huo Liancheng was confessing to her, but the situation was not right. She did not have the time to think about the deeper meaning in his words and could only pretend that she did not understand. Huo Liancheng narrowed his eyes. Jian Yun's trembling fingers had already revealed her emotions to him. The corner of his mouth could not be seen. "Jian Yun, your mother wants to stay in the ICU for 48 hours. Go back and rest. The hospital will let you know if there's any news." Bai Zhe saw that Jian Yun's expression was not right and thought that she was still worried about her mother, so he asked out of concern. Jian Yun was a little hesitant. If she went back now, she would definitely be worried and unable to sleep. She still wanted to stay in the hospital so that she could feel closer to her mother. "It's late. Let's go eat first." Huo Liancheng raised his wrist to look at the time. Jian Yun could not refuse this request. Even if she did not want to eat, the doctors and nurses had been busy all morning. They still needed to eat. Furthermore, Elson had been here for 2 days, and had been busy with the surgery plan for her mother's illness. She had to treat him to a meal to thank him. In the end, it was Huo Liancheng who invited Elson, Senior Yin, and Director Li to a meal with Bai Zhe and the others. However, Bai Zhe declined. He said that he wanted to make a record, but he did not attend. Ouyang Beicheng said that he had something to do, so he did not go. Although she heard from Elson and Bai Zhe that her mother's surgery was successful, Jian Yun was only slightly relieved. As long as her mother did not wake up for a day, she could not completely rest assured. Therefore, Jian Yun did not have much appetite. She was distracted the entire time and did not even know when the banquet would end. Huo Liancheng drove Jian Yun home directly. It was already 1:30 in the afternoon. He went home to change his clothes and left after giving a few instructions. Jian Yun sat alone in the house in a daze. Jian Yun wanted to go to the hospital and wait, but she also understood that going now was of no use. Moreover, places like hospitals were gloomy at night. The hospital had to go through too much of life and death every day. She had seen too much these days, and she felt that her emotions had been affected. If it was possible, she really did not want to go to that kind of place again. Forget it. What Bai Zhe said was right. She wouldn't be able to see her mother even if she went now, so she might as well wait at home for news. Thinking about this, Jian Yun felt relieved. She went to the washroom to take a bath. After drying her hair, she climbed onto the bed to sleep. However, Jian Yun was thinking about something and did not sleep well until she was woken up by a phone ringing. The phone call was from Huo Liancheng. At home? Huo Liancheng immediately asked when Jian Yun picked up the phone. Yes. Jian Yun always felt a little strange in her heart. A few days ago, she hated him so much that she wanted to die. She swore that she would never have anything to do with him in this lifetime. She did not expect that in less than a few days, she would actually live in his house. Fortune made people mad. Huo Liancheng was silent for a moment. Then he said, I have something to do at the last moment. I have to go back to Switzerland. The plane is about to take off. I don't have time to go home and see you. Take care of yourself. If you have something to... Oh, okay. Jian Yun was worried about how they would get along after Huo Liancheng came back at night. When she heard that he was not coming back, she could not help but heave a sigh of relief. At the same time, she was curious about what would happen. It was so urgent that he did not even have time to pack his things. Huo Liancheng did not hang up the phone, so Jian Yun could not hang up first. She could not hear him for a long time. She carefully asked, Is there anything else you have nothing to say to me? Huo Liancheng asked. No. Jian Yun thought about it. She did not have anything to say to him. Although their relationship was not as bad as before, it was not to the extent where they could not bear to part with each other. Did she have to say, Have a safe journey and come back early. I will wait for you at home. Just thinking about it gave Jian Yun goosebumps all over her body, not to mention asking her to say it out loud. Huo Liancheng was silent for a moment before he said faintly, I understand. As soon as he finished speaking, the other side of the phone also completely went silent. Jian Yun looked at the screen of the phone that had turned black, and a large question mark immediately burst out on her forehead. Why did she feel that Huo Liancheng's last sentence was filled with disappointment? She must have thought too much. Jian Yun was the only one in the family. She was much more at ease. Besides, Huo Liancheng's house was a little deserted. In fact, it was very comfortable to live in. There were food ingredients in the fridge. Jian Yun would cook for herself when she was hungry. He also left the Wi-Fi password. When she was bored, Jian Yun would use her phone to browse Weibo. Time passed very quickly. At 7 o'clock in the evening, Jian Yun received a call from Ouyang Beicheng. You moved over to live with him? Ouyang Beicheng asked directly. Little uncle, Jian Yun was stunned. She did not think of a reason to tell Ouyang Beicheng that she moved out. She was discovered. What should she do? Mom and Dad know about your mom. They're coming over tomorrow. Come back and stay for 2 days. Don't let them find out that you have a boyfriend, he continued. Otherwise, they will be worried about you again if they know who Huo Liancheng is. However, what surprised Jian Yun was that Ouyang Beicheng did not scold her. Instead, he was very considerate and gave her ideas to hide from her grandparents. Little uncle. Jian Yun could not help but wonder if she had heard wrongly. You did not misheard me. I am not old-fashioned. If you like him, then stay with him. But remember to protect yourself. Remember to take measures. Don't let yourself get hurt and don't get pregnant. Ouyang Beicheng's words were very ambiguous, but Jian Yun still understood what he meant, especially the second half. When she heard the second half, her face turned red. Protect yourself well and take measures. She, little uncle, was reminding her to use condoms, otherwise it would not be fun to get pregnant. Jian Yun was embarrassed. She could not help covering her face. She really wanted to tell Ouyang Beicheng that such a thing would never happen. But Jian Yun also understood that she could not say this now. Firstly, she could not tell anyone about the contract between her and Huo Liancheng. If Ouyang Beicheng found out that she was being threatened by Huo Liancheng, then he wouldn't take it. Chapter 159, You Can't Even Get a Wife. However, now that everything was settled, she had signed the contract as well. Now that she had even gotten her marriage certificate, even if Liang Beicheng went to look for Huo Liancheng, it wouldn't help at all. It would only make things worse. I know, little uncle, Jian Yun said with a red face. Have you eaten? Liang Beicheng knew that although he was older than Jian Yun by a generation, he was not much older. It was a bit awkward for him to say this, so he quickly changed the topic. Yes, I have. Jian Yun answered honestly. Have a good rest. Liang Beicheng did not give Jian Yun a chance to speak and immediately hung up. Jian Yun stared at her phone and saw that Liang Beicheng had indeed hung up. She could not help but twitch her lips. She originally wanted to say that, although she had eaten, she could still accompany him to eat another meal. Because Jian Yun wanted to ask Liang Beicheng about the matter between him and Bai Yanran. Although she knew that he probably would not say it, Jian Yun still wanted to try asking and see if he had any interest in Bai Yanran. That night, Jian Yun was alone. Although the house was a little big, it was still much better than being in the hospital. Jian Yun slept until dawn. After washing up, Jian Yun drank milk and turned on her phone. She saw Huo Liancheng send her a message. It was in the middle of the night. There were only 3 words, I'm here. Jian Yun stared at the 3 words for a long time and replied with a message. Did everything go well? Huo Liancheng did not reply for a long time. Jian Yun guessed that he might be sleeping, so she did not wait any longer. She put away her phone and drank the milk. It was almost 8 o'clock, so she called Old Wang. Jian Yun was going to the hospital. Although her mother was in the ICU and was not allowed to visit, if her grandparents came, they would definitely go to the hospital. She had to first communicate with Liang Beicheng and know what she could say. What she could not say was that her grandparents were too old to be provoked. 20 minutes later, Old Wang drove downstairs. Jian Yun went downstairs and got into the car. She told Old Wang the location. Half an hour later, the car stopped outside the hospital. Jian Yun did not want to attract too much attention. It was also because Liang Beicheng called her and told her that her grandparents had arrived and were waiting for her at the hospital. Jian Yun was worried that her grandparents would ask her if they saw her get out of a luxury car, so she got out of the car on the roadside outside the hospital. When she got out of the car, it was Old Wang who opened the door for Jian Yun. Jian Yun smiled and thanked him. It was supposed to be a very ordinary incident, but Jian Yun did not know that not far away, someone secretly took a picture of this scene. From Bentley parked on the roadside, to Old Wang opening the door, and then Jian Yun getting out of the car. The entire process was recorded. After getting off the car, Jian Yun waved goodbye to Old Wang and told him to go back first. She would not use the car today. Old Wang did not ask any more questions. He was just a driver. He just needed to be obedient. After saying that, Jian Yun turned around and walked towards the hospital. As soon as she entered the door, she saw her grandparents sitting on a chair in front of the consultation hall. They were looking in this direction. Jian Yun immediately praised her own wisdom. If she had gotten off the car here, she would have been hit by her grandparents. When the 2 elders saw Jian Yun, they immediately came up to her. What surprised Jian Yun was that they were not hysterical and heartbroken. Although their faces were full of worry and sadness, they were very rational. Grandfather, Grandma. On the other hand, when Jian Yun saw Grandma's kind face, her nose turned sour, and she could not help but shed tears. Good girl, thank you for your hard work. Grandma hugged Jian Yun and patted her back to comfort her. Grandpa, Grandma, let's go over there. Jian Yun wiped her tears. This was not the place to talk. She planned to take her grandparents to the special care ward to talk. But when she looked up, she did not see Liang Beicheng. She could not help but ask, where is little uncle? He went to buy us breakfast. Jian Yun's grandfather was called Liang Shun. Although he was already in his 70s, he had been practicing martial arts since he was young. His body was straight, and his face was rosy. He looked energetic and energetic. Wait for him. Jian Yun helped her grandmother sit down and rubbed her face against her shoulder. Yun, has your father been here? Liang Shun suddenly asked. Jian Yun's eyelids trembled and her face turned ugly. She shook her head. No. Her grandfather and grandmother did not speak again, but Jian Yun could feel the change in the atmosphere around them. Before long, Liang Beicheng came back. He carried the bag and walked side by side with Liang Shun. Jian Yun was in front to support her grandmother. Before entering the intensive care ward, he quietly pulled Jian Yun. Jian Yun deliberately slowed down a step, and Liang Beicheng whispered into Jian Yun's ear. There's nothing to hide. Mom and Dad already know. Your aunt heard the news from somewhere, and she told them everything. Jian Yun could not hide her shock. Grandfather and Grandma actually knew everything. Go in. Liang Beicheng wrapped his arm around Jian Yun's shoulder, and the 2 entered the house together. Grandpa, Grandma. Jian Yun looked at Liang Shun and Chen Shufang. Sit down. Liang Shun's tone was dignified. Jian Yun sat down obediently, and Liang Beicheng sat beside her. Jian Yun then began to receive her grandfather's education. Liang Shun used to run a martial arts club. Although he was old, he still had that imposing aura. He was very good at beating people up, and even the little bastard Liang Beicheng was afraid of him. Yunduo, we know you are filial. Your mother had such a big problem. You didn't tell us because you didn't want us to worry. It is a good idea, but it has to be divided into 2. Wu Yangshun looked very angry. How can you handle such a big problem by yourself? You are overestimating yourself. Okay, your voice is loud. You scared the child. Chen Shufang patted Wu Yangshun and came over to sit beside Jian Yun. She hugged her and said gently, Yunduo, your elder also loves you. If something like this happened, it would be better for everyone to think of a way to deal with it together than to take it on by yourself, right? She continued. Grandma knows that you are afraid that we cannot take it. We have seen many things. We will not be defeated so easily. Remember, no matter what happens, do not take it alone. Jian Yun's nose was sour. Being scolded by Wu Yangshun only made her feel wronged. Chen Shufen's words at this time made her heart feel uncomfortable. Her tears started to fall. And you? Wu Yangshun's heart ached when he saw Jian Yun cry. He could not bear to scold her anymore. He turned to scold Uyan Beicheng. He said, You are over 30 years old and you can't even get a wife. Yunduo is young and she is a girl. You do not provide suitable help. Every day you talk about protecting the country. Family is in front. You do not even have a home now. Ouyang Beicheng sat up straight and lowered his eyes. He did not say anything despite Ouyang Shun's scolding. He was very experienced. If he were to retort at this time, he would be scolded at the least, and at the worst, he would be beaten up. So it was better to remain silent anyway. Chapter 160 Her Boyfriend Call. Sure enough, Chen Shufen was unhappy when she saw Ouyang Shun scolding her son. She rushed over and slapped him. Why are you so angry? It's rare for Ouyang Beicheng to come back. Can't you say something nice? This kid is such a bastard. It's all because of you. Also, who is the one who wants him to change his career all the time and come back to get a wife? Ouyang Ming stared at Chen Shufen with dissatisfaction. What did I do? If you hadn't taught him martial arts since he was young, would he have been so interested in carrying a spear? Back then, you asked him to join the army. Chen Shufen also became angry. Seeing that grandfather and granny were about to have an internal conflict, Jian Yun quickly went up and pulled Chen Shufen away. But she also knew that grandfather and granny were very close. They had never quarreled in their entire lives. They usually bickered to adjust their lives, so she was not worried. Wu Yangshun and Chen Shufen exchanged a few words. Then, thinking of their daughter who was still in the ICU, the two elders could not help but fall silent. Yunduo, why do you think your mother is so stubborn? She forced herself to this dead end. Chen Shufen sighed. Jian Yun knew that her grandparents were very angry with her father, but that was a man who gave her life. They did not want to make things difficult for her, so they did not mention Jian Dongming in front of her. Dad, Mom, sister is in the ICU and the hospital does not allow visitors. There are many germs in Spring Hospital and Mom is not well. Let's go back to Yunduo's house first. At this time, Ouyang Beicheng said. Ouyang Shun and Chen Shufen did not have any objections. Although the condition of the ward was good, it was not as comfortable as staying at home. Jian Yun originally wanted to ask Bai Zhe about the situation, but she was not at ease. However, she could not get through to Bai Zhe's phone. She guessed that he might be performing surgery at this time, so it was fine. Before she went out, Jian Yun met the head nurse who was in charge of Ouyang Fei's bed. The head nurse told her that it was rare for Dr. Elson to come. These 2 days, Director Li was bringing the elite doctors in the hospital to learn from Dr. Elson. This way, Jian Yun also knew that Bai Zhe definitely did not have time to bother with her, and could only... Ouyang Beicheng borrowed a car from a friend and took Jian Yun and Ouyang Shen to Jian Yun's rented house. Jian Yun did not dare to say that she had moved out. It just so happened that Huo Liancheng was not in Qinghu these few days. It was okay if she did not go back. A day passed just like that, but there was still no news from the hospital. Jian Yun felt uneasy but did not dare to show it. She could see that her grandfather and grandmother were also trying their best to hold back their worries. At this time, it was Ouyang Beicheng who was as calm as before, like a god-stabilizing needle. He lived as normal as usual. With him around, the 2 old men and the young man felt much more at ease. At 5 in the afternoon, Jian Yun was sitting on the sofa in the living room, chatting with her grandmother. Her phone suddenly rang. She picked up her phone and saw that it was Huo Liancheng's phone. She immediately got up nervously and ran into the house. She even specially closed the door before picking it up. Hello? I just saw a text message. Huo Liancheng's voice was tired. He seemed very tired. Oh. Jian Yun thought for 3 seconds before she realized that she had sent him a message in the morning. She asked him if everything was going well. Jian Yun knew that Huo Liancheng's parents lived in Switzerland, but she did not know exactly what he was going back to do. She had only said a few words of courtesy. Now that she had spoken to him on the phone, she could not ask. There are more things here. I'll talk to you when I get back. Huo Liancheng suddenly sneezed as he spoke. You have a cold? Jian Yun asked with concern. No matter what, Huo Liancheng had helped her. It was only right for her to care about him. No. Huo Liancheng rubbed his nose. Jian Yun was about to say something when she suddenly heard sneezes coming from the other side. Huo Liancheng probably put his phone to the side. Jian Yun heard the sound coming from the other side. Flowers are so annoying. Huo Liancheng picked up his phone. He seemed to be walking and his footsteps were hurried. At the same time, he was grumpily complaining. Jianyun heard his angry voice and suddenly wanted to laugh, especially when she imagined his cold expression. He always looked down on the world. But now he was glaring at one garden flower. She felt that it was more like a scene. Bad girl, what are you laughing at? Huo Liancheng was unhappy. I'm not laughing. Jianyun quickly covered her mouth and secretly stuck out her tongue. Did Huo Liancheng have 1,000 miles of vision? He even knew that she was grinning. I have something to say. Let's not talk anymore. I'll call you later. Huo Liancheng suddenly said in a hurry. Jianyun heard someone talking over there. She knew that Huo Liancheng had something to take care of, so she quickly nodded. All right. After hanging up the phone, Jianyun turned around and went out. However, she found that her grandparents and Ouyang Beicheng were all staring at her. What's wrong? Is my face dirty? Jianyun touched her face. Yunduo, who are you calling? Liangshen could not help but ask first. Friends. Jianyun looked at Ouyang Beicheng guiltily, but saw that he was expressionless and did not give her any hints. A boyfriend? Chen Shufen smiled until the wrinkles on her face were piled up into a chrysanthemum and her gentle eyes were shining. No. Jianyun was stunned again, but Ouyang Shun and Chen Shufen clearly did not believe her words. Girl, just admit it when you have a boyfriend. Why are you hiding it from us? We are not people who are not open-minded. Even if the other party's conditions are not good, the two of us can fight together. Our Ouyang family's women never rely on men. If your mother finds out that you have a boyfriend, she will definitely be happy. Ouyang Shun's smile made his white beard shake. Really not. Jianyun did not dare to admit it. Once she admitted it, her grandparents would definitely let her bring her boyfriend to show them. She looked like she was going to be exposed. Jianyun kept looking at Ouyang Beicheng, hoping that he could help her out. When they were young, they had a tacit understanding. Every time she did something bad, Ouyang Beicheng would watch over her. She would also protect Ouyang Beicheng when her grandfather beat him up. But today, Jianyun's eyes were almost sore. Ouyang Beicheng still sat there as steady as a mountain and did not look at her. Look at how you looked when you just answered the phone. Your eyes are so bright that they are about to drip water. You still say you are not a boyfriend? Chen Shufen pulled Jianyun over and let her sit beside her. She stretched out her hand to point at Jianyun's head and deliberately made a look of dissatisfaction. Where is it? Jianyun was shocked by Granny's description. It was just a phone call, and grandfather and grandmother's brain hole was too big. Ouyang Shun and Chen Shufen both knew that Jianyun and Shu Haiyan had been together. They also knew that she had sealed off her feelings for the past 6 years. She did not fall in love again, so they suddenly smelled that Jianyun might have a boyfriend. They were so excited that they could not hold back their excitement. They wanted to know the specific information. However, Jianyun kept her mouth shut this time and did not admit anything. The two elders originally wanted to ask Ouyang Beicheng about it, but when they saw Ouyang Beicheng's appearance, they immediately lost their mood. At this time, Jianyun's phone rang again. It was an unfamiliar number.